This garden produced hundreds of pounds of food, but not every crop earned its place. The only reason I know that is because I tracked it. I track my harvest so that I don't waste time, space, or money in the garden. Because in a small garden, every square foot matters. I don't get unlimited chances or unlimited space to grow things that kind of work but don't really earn their keep. My tracking system is pretty simple and has grown out of what actually fits into my life. I'm not sitting down every day to analyze numbers and run charts. Most of the time, I'm just trying to get food out of the garden and onto our plates. During the season, tracking is mostly trying to capture what comes out of the garden. Deeper analysis happens later when the season is over and I can look at everything as a whole. That separation keeps tracking useful without taking over my day. The harvest log is where everything begins. Every time I bring something inside from the garden, I capture 3 things: what crop it is, the date I harvested, and how much it weighed. If it comes out of the garden, it goes into the log. That rule keeps things simple and consistent. I don't try to decide in that moment if what I harvested is worthy enough of recording. If I harvested it, it counts. Sometimes I record the variety or any notes, like what bed it came from or if it was part of a certain experiment. Those notes can be helpful, but they are optional. The most important thing is the weight. Even if I miss adding notes or the variety, the data is still useful as long as I've gotten the weight. Tracking doesn't need to be perfect in order for it to be valuable. I also want to be clear about this. I do not do any math when I'm harvesting. I'm not thinking about totals or goals or whether or not this crop is doing well. I just capture the data and move on. This separation is important because it keeps tracking from feeling overwhelming. My system is very low tech. I use a kitchen scale, the camera on my phone, and Excel. After I harvest something, I put the produce on the scale and capture a picture, and that's the whole job for the moment. Later on, when I have time, I'll go through the photos on my phone and enter the weights into the Excel spreadsheet. If I had to sit down and log everything right then and now, I would never keep up. This system works because it fits into my real life, even during busy weeks. When I'm harvesting something like potatoes, it's a little bit messy and rushed.
Potato!
Gently, okay? Not with your nails. Gently, you'll break the skin. Okay? Yep, keep going.
Potato!
Oh, that's a nice one, eh?
Dig. Dig.
Gently with your fingers.
Potato! Dig. Dig. Dig.
I'm digging them up, dusting the dirt off, and carrying them inside in whatever container I can find. Weigh the harvest. Take a quick picture of the scale and then move on with my day. In that moment, I'm not deciding if the harvest is good or bad. I'm not judging it at all. I'm just trying to capture the number so that I don't have to rely on my memory later. When I have time, either later that night or sometime in a few days, I scroll through my phone's photos and enter the weights into my Excel. It only takes a few minutes, but it gives me a clear record of what came out of the garden. Cabbage works the same way. I cut the head, take the weight, grab a photo, and move on. Each harvest matters on its own, but it's when you sit down at the end of the season and add all the harvests up that you see what the garden really gave you. Once the season is over, that's when the second step happens. I take all those individual harvest entries and summarize them by crop. This is where decisions start to happen. The summary table lets me see, all in one place, how each crop performed against what I expected. This is where tracking really starts to change how I garden. Onions are a great example of why I track. They felt productive during the season, I harvested a lot of them, and they took up a significant amount of garden space. But when I look at the summary, I realized that the only reason onions looked good was because I planted a lot of them. When I looked at the yield per square foot, onions produced less than a pound per square foot. This tells me that that garden space wasn't being used as effectively as it could have been. Without tracking, I would have kept growing onions the same way and assumed they were doing great. Turnips were the opposite. I planted them and honestly kind of forgot about them. They didn't need very much attention and they quietly filled in the late season. When I looked at my summary, they had outperformed my estimates and they produced more than a pound per square foot. For how little effort they required, they performed very well. And that's a crop that earns a spot in my garden, even if it's one that I don't think about all the time. Garlic is a crop I decided to cut. The yield is small for the amount of space it takes up, and the allium pests absolutely love it. In a large garden, that might be fine, but in my small garden, I need crops to give more than they take. Looking at the numbers made that decision clear. I didn't have to rely on frustration or feeling like I failed. The data told me it wasn't a good fit for my space. Deciding to stop growing garlic was freeing. Instead of forcing myself to grow something because I've always had, I can free up more space for some crops that give more back. Tracking gave me permission to let it go without feeling like I failed. What's the biggest benefit to tracking for me? It takes the emotion out of it. Instead of beating myself up over what didn't work, I can look at the numbers and ask better questions. Do I need to grow this more efficiently? Does it need a better location? Or does it just not belong in my garden anymore? For a long time, I relied on my memory to tell me how the garden was doing. I would think things like, that crop felt productive. I remember harvesting a lot of that, or maybe that's not worth growing again. But your memory is unreliable, especially across a full season. When you're busy or tired or juggling a lot, it's really easy to misjudge what happened. Tracking gives me something solid to look back on so that I can learn from each season instead of just guessing. Garden space is limited, time and energy is limited. Soil, compost, seeds, water, all cost money. Tracking helps me understand if the effort I'm putting in is really paying off. It's also how I measure my own growth as a gardener. If I didn't track anything, it would be really hard to see if I was improving season after season or if I'm just repeating the same patterns. This is why tracking matters to me. Without it, every season just kind of blurs together. It also helps me separate effort from outcome. Some crops need a lot of attention and still underperform. Others quietly do their job with very little input. Tracking lets me see that difference clearly and allows me to go into planning next season intentionally instead of reactively. Looking back at the data, what stands out to me isn't just what worked and what didn't. It's how much clearer the decisions feel. I'm no longer guessing why something struggled or second guessing if I should grow it again. Tracking doesn't mean every season needs to be optimized. It just means I'm learning on purpose. Some crops don't need fixing, they just need a better spot. Others don't belong in my garden at all, and some surprised me enough to earn more space next year. That clarity makes planning calmer. Instead of starting from scratch each winter, I'm building on what I already know. The garden becomes less about chasing perfection and more about making steady, thoughtful improvements.